Tonight on First at 9 this Saturday the 6th of December 2025. Worst of times. Ditwa fatalities rise to 618. 209 still missing. 71 reservoirs continue to overflow as Sri Lanka grapples devastating after effects of Cyclone Ditwa. Cautionary tales. Met Department urges amber advisory for severe lightning. Public urged to remain vigilant. Propping up, special circular on compensation and relief issued as Sri Lanka attempts to get back up post-Ditwa. From the top, pay all compensation before the end of the year, orders the President.
Kalin baby so rupial anuwakata. Kalin baby podi hamotamai.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Adrisinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world, brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. In a top story tonight, the death toll from the recent heavy rain triggered disastrous weather conditions in Sri Lanka has reached 618, with 209 still unaccounted for. Meanwhile, residents are gradually moving back to their homes and the military have also launched measures to assist the cleaning operations. Water supply has been resumed to many areas while doctors urge the public to remain cautious of communicable diseases. In the meantime, aggrieved farmers of many areas are yearning for government assistance to resume cultivations in their destroyed paddy fields.
The threat of landslides were reported across several areas despite Cyclone Ditwa's movement away from Sri Lanka. Last night, 11 families in Rattagala Ruwanwalla were relocated to the Rattagala Primary School by the District Secretary and the police due to fears of further earth slips. Meanwhile, 50 individuals from 13 families residing in Manikkawatta in Rosalla Watawala were moved to the Valioa Tamil School at around 1 a.m. today. Here's how the rain the Pula area where a landslide occurred along the Valimadanuwara road appeared today. Environmental organizations report that more than 100 acres of land in Miribadanuwara area eroded away on the 28th of November. The soil and debris are believed to have flowed into the Randhanigala reservoir, and by today, even the surrounding roads were unrecognizable. Several homes in Palgahakanda also sustained damage caused by a landslide near the 8th mile post along the Badulla Pastara main road. Several floods triggered by heavy rains destroyed a bridge in Spring Valley, Badulla, while also devastating tea estates in the area. Residents of Narang in Deltota were heavily affected after 15 houses were buried by an earth slip, while a nearby preschool also sustained damage. Around 6 villages, including Kobegane, Pattia and Dalua, suffered extensive destruction as powerful currents of water spilled over from the Dadru Oya. In Polonnaruwa, residents of Pudur village have been displaced after their homes were washed away by floodwaters of the Mahavali River. Meanwhile, a section of the Kotavehera Ampara road, which runs parallel to Galoya, has been destroyed as rising water levels eroded the river bank in the Samapura area. In the wake of all this destruction, families evacuated over flood and landslide concerns gradually returned home. As evacuated residents returned home, cleanups continued across several areas today as well. After carrying out extensive rescue efforts, the army extended its support for cleanup efforts in the Hiyatakandia. Meanwhile, Army Commander Lieutenant General Lasantha Rodrigo inquired into the well-being of Army troops deployed for rescue and relief efforts in the Mahiyangane area. As the country continues to mourn the lives of all rescue workers lost in the line of duty, the final rites of the Navy's electrical mechanic M. Disanaika, who perished during a flood mitigation operation in the Chale Mulatiu, were performed in Dabula today. While foreign aid to Sri Lanka pours in from across the globe, Indian Deputy High Commissioner to Sri Lanka S. Saranya visited the mobile hospital set up in Mahianganaya, which was provided by the Indian government. The Air Force's aerial relief operations continued today in Kothmale, Gampula, Askiriya, Niangandura, Ingurugala and Uttudumbara. The aerial relief operations were carried out by the Air Force using Bell 412, Bell 212, Mi-17 helicopters and a Y-12 aircraft. Meanwhile, the Navy successfully repaired and restored a damaged water supply system in the Madampe area, returning clean water access to approximately 2,000 families. The restoration work was carried out off the back of a request made by the Puttalam office of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. The system, which distributes water from the Nelumpokuna water treatment plant in Madampe to Walahapitiya, had been compromised by the recent flooding and adverse weather. The landslide debris that blocked Walakadeava at the 87th kilometer post along the Colombo-Kandy main road was cleared today. Cleaning efforts in flood-ravaged Kotikavatta and Vellampitiya were underway today as well. Meanwhile, many farmers across Sri Lanka still reel in the aftermath of unprecedented floods and landslides. Their crops and cultivations have been completely destroyed by the torrential rainfall and its disastrous consequences. Paddy fields in the north-central province, including Polonnaruwa and Dehiyatta Kandiya, were completely destroyed. Devastated farmers yearn for government support to resume paddy cultivations. While cultivations across the country sustained devastating blows, rice mills in Polonnaruwa too were confronted by the disaster, with facilities inundated and machinery damaged. Mill owners complain of about 12 feet of water flooding their facilities, causing a financial setback of around 5 million rupees. Several acres of banana plantations in Rajanganaya were also destroyed by the adverse weather. Aggrieved farmers involved in the banana export industry raised concern over the economic fallout of the destruction to farming communities and the country at large. Vegetable cultivation in Kandapulanura area was also destroyed by floods and landslides. Farmers in the area complained that many vegetable crops, including leeks, carrots and cabbages, have been destroyed. More acutely, farmers raised concern over soil fertility, as sand, silt, waste and other debris harmful to cultivation have settled over arable land. Meanwhile, Minister of Housing, Construction and Water Supply Dr. Susil Ranasinghe revealed pertinent details on home renovations in the wake of this humanitarian crisis and the restoration of impaired water supplies.
Water supply in nearly all 25 districts was impaired by the adverse weather. However, as of today, we have now restored 90% of the disrupted water supply connections. We expect to restore the water supply completely very soon. We have also initiated measures to build both fully and partially damaged houses. A meeting was convened recently at the Presidential Secretariat with all key stakeholders, including UN Habitat, the governments of India and China, international development partners and engineering experts. We anticipate their support in the reconstruction process and they have already expressed their willingness to assist.
As citizens unite to resume their daily lives, health professionals urge caution against possible outbreaks of communicable diseases.
As
the first wave of the disaster subsides, the second wave, named communicable diseases, could gradually build up. As always, we implore everyone to drink boiled water. Furthermore, if wells were inundated by floodwaters, we urge residents to disinfect and purify them before drinking water out of such wells. Certain diseases could also spread through food. There are particular concerns we must be aware of when consuming cooked food. Hygiene is a very important factor to consider when cooking meals. We implore those suffering from diseases such as diarrhea to refrain from cooking any meals. Washing hands before consuming food is also very important. We are aware that latrine facilities to many have been limited. We urge everyone to definitely wash their hands with soap and water after using washrooms. We are also aware that there is stagnant mud and water in many areas. These conditions are conducive of leptospirosis. Leptospirosis is not exclusively spread by rats. Dog, cattle or swine urine carrying leptospirosis can contaminate water and infect humans. If someone has an open wound or even a scratch, and if this wound comes into contact with contaminated water, such a person could be infected. The bacteria in question can also enter through sensitive tissues around your mouth, eyes and lips. We have distributed doxycycline for individuals who were exposed to floods. You must take 200 milligrams of it immediately. If you are involved in cleanups and if the path leading up to your residence is inundated, you are urged to take this medicine over the course of a week.
දිගටම සතියක් පාසා මෙම මාත්‍රාව ලබා ගන්න.
As Sri Lanka continues to deal with the after effects of Cyclone Ditwa, the Irrigation Department announced that a total of 71 reservoirs, including 36 major reservoirs, are currently overflowing. The Irrigation Department notes that reservoirs under its management currently retain water levels of up to 80% of each reservoir's total capacity. In the meantime, the Disaster Management Centre warned of a potential risk of minor flooding in the Malwatu Oya as water levels continue to rise. According to latest statistics, 618 people have reportedly lost their lives, while another 209 continue to remain missing. The Disaster Management Centre notes that 232 fatalities were reported from the Kandy district. 81 people in the same district still remain missing. The Nuwara Eliya district reports the second highest number of fatalities, amounting to 89 deaths and 35 missing. Meanwhile, 83 deaths have been reported from the Badula district, while 28 remain missing. The Disaster Management Centre notes that 2,078,436 individuals of 583,030 families remain affected by the adverse weather. In the meantime, 100,124 persons are currently located at 990 safety centres across the island. According to the latest reports of the DMC, 4,071 residences have been completely destroyed, while 71,121 were partially damaged.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමය forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
අප වෙනුවෙන් කැපවූ ලංකාවේ අපේ අංක එකේ ජාලය dialogue. දවටනේ නියම මිල සඳහන් ස්විස්ටෙක් නිෂ්පාදන මිලදී ගන්න. ස්විස්ටෙක් ගන්න ඕන හොඳම තීරණය.
Now, meanwhile, issuing an amber advisory for severe lightning, the Department of Meteorology forecasts that thunder showers accompanied by severe lightning are likely to occur in the western and Sabargamu provinces and in the Gaul and Matra districts. The Met Department requested the public to remain vigilant and take precautionary measures to minimize any damage. The department further cautions the public to avoid open areas, seek shelter preferably indoors and be aware of fallen trees and power lines. The public has been urged to contact the local disaster management authorities for emergency assistance. Welcome back. Now, the Minister of Finance issued a special circular yesterday outlining all terms and conditions upon which compensation will be provided to those in need. The government asserts that all compensation is expected to stimulate post-disaster economic and social recovery.
Secretary to the Minister of Finance Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma issued a special circular yesterday as Sri Lankans attempt to get their lives back on track. According to this circular, each housing unit will be allocated 25,000 rupees regardless of the occupier's title to the house. The funds have been earmarked to finance safe and proper cleaning of houses ravaged by floods and landslides. A one-time allowance of 50,000 rupees for each housing unit will be allocated to purchase essential items including kitchen supplies as resettlement continues across Sri Lanka. This allowance too will be provided regardless of the resident's title to the house. The government has also taken steps to provide a monthly allowance of either 25,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees over a period of 3 months to families who are unable to resume their livelihoods since landslides and floods have completely destroyed their residential property. Accordingly, an allowance of 25,000 rupees will be provided for families of 2 or less. Families with more than 2 members will be provided 50,000 rupee allowance. This allowance will be provided to entitled parties from December 2025 to February 2026. 2026. In the meantime, a monthly allowance of 25,000 rupees will be granted to finance rent payments for those rendered homeless by floods and landslides. This allowance is expected to be provided for 6 months. According to the special circular, a one-time allowance of 150,000 rupees will be provided as compensation for damaged crops. The allocation is expected to finance the recultivation of paddy, several types of grains and maize. Additionally, a one-time grant of 200,000 rupees will be provided per hectare of damaged vegetable cultivation. This allocation too is made to fund recultivation of crucial crops. Similarly, a one-time allowance of 200,000 rupees each will be provided to finance the redevelopment of livestock farms. This particular allowance will only be provided to registered farm owners. A maximum allowance of 400,000 rupees will be provided as compensation to cover the damage caused to fishing boats. In the meantime, a one-time grant of 15,000 rupees per school student will be provided. This allowance is expected to finance the procurement of books, clothing and other school supplies. According to the circular, an allowance of 5 million rupees will be provided for the construction of a new house for families whose residences have been completely damaged beyond habitability. Similarly, in cases where the house in which one resides is completely damaged and the government is unable to provide state-owned land to build a new residence, a 5 million rupee allowance will be provided to purchase suitable land. An allowance of 2.5 million rupees will be provided to finance repairs of each residence that sustained partial flood or landslide damage. This allowance will be provided based on a duly conducted damage assessment. A maximum allowance of 5 million rupees will be provided to each commercial building that sustained damage. This allowance too will only be granted subsequent to a duly conducted damage assessment. Meanwhile, a one-time allowance of 200,000 rupees will be provided to each sole proprietorship and small to medium enterprise affected by the ongoing disaster situation. The respective allowance will be provided to finance the resumption of business activities or to stabilize such businesses. The government also took steps to provide compensation of 1 million rupees each to the closest relative of an individual who unfortunately perished in the disaster. The same compensation will be provided to those who have been rendered disabled following the devastating consequences of Cyclone Detwa.
Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka issued directives to all licensed banks to provide relief measures to individuals and businesses directly affected by the recent weather-related disaster. Licensed banks are instructed, licensed banks as instructed thereby, are expected to implement these relief measures to affected individuals by the 15th of January next year.
In view of the adverse weather patterns prompted by Cyclone Detwa, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, having considered the proposals put forward by the Sri Lanka Banks Association and also having considered the need to grant effective relief to those affected without unduly compromising financial system stability, issued a circular to all licensed banks to provide relief measures to individuals and businesses whose income or business has been directly affected. Accordingly, licensed banks have been requested to provide relief measures upon receiving a request from such borrowers in writing or through electronic means by the 15th of January 2026. Under temporary debt relief, the Central Bank instructed all licensed banks to suspend repayments of capital and or interest of existing credit facilities of the affected borrowers for a period of 3 to 6 months on a case-by-case basis. Licensed banks are also instructed not to charge an interest rate above the applicable contractual rate of interest during the period of suspension and to ensure that any interest will not be charged on the deferred interest payments. Under providing new loan facilities to affected borrowers, the Central Bank instructed all licensed banks to grant new loan facilities to affected individuals and businesses on a case-by-case basis, considering the repayment capacity of the borrower. In addition, licensed banks have been requested to suspend charging for check returns, stop payments, late payment fees, credit restructuring or bonification fees, and penal interest on all credit facilities of affected borrowers during the period up to the 31st of January 2026. The CBSL noted that where charges are levied through automatic system-generated entries, such charges should be refunded to the relevant account within 3 business days of being charged.
30% discount on Arpico Foam and Spring mattresses, available at Arpico Supercenter and Arpico Daily.
Musa Phoenix Natal Fiesta, November 13 සිට 16 දක්වා අනුරාධපුර ස්පොට්නික් ක්‍රීඩා පිටියේදී.
Now, off the back of these relief and compensation provided, President Anura Dissanayake emphasized the need for unity across all government departments to restore public life after the unprecedented weather disaster. He made these remarks while attending the District Coordinating Committee meeting in Kandy today.
කෘෂිකර්ම දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව
ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමනි ඉතින් අපි පොහොර සහන ආධාරය ලබා දුන්නත් එක්ක හැම ගොවියෙක්ම නාම ලේඛනය තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපිට ගැටලුවක් නැ අපිට සතියක් ඇතුළත ඒ වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්න පුළුවන්.
ඒ දීමනාව දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒතකොට ඒ හෙක්ටයාරක ලක්ෂ එකමාරක් දුන්නාම ඒකේ අපේක්ෂාව වෙන්නේ වගා කිරීම. හොඳයි. එහෙම නැතුව ලක්ෂ එකමාර නේද වෙන ඒවට වියදම් කිරීමේ පළක් නැහැනේ.
මිනිපේ ව්‍යාපාරයේ ඇල්ලට වැටලා තිබුණ ගස් ටික ඉවත් කරගන්න සති දෙකක් ඉල්ලුවා. පස්සේ මම පොලිසිය සම්බන්ධ කරගෙන වන ජීවියක සම්බන්ධ කරගෙන වාරිමාර්ගයක් සම්බන්ධ කරගෙන දවස් දෙකකින් ඒක අවසන් කරගන්න.
අපිට ඔය තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි අපි සාමාන්‍ය අපේ රාජ්‍ය.
The general state machinery thinks that departments must not venture out of their specific mandates. However, we cannot view this special situation through a traditional perspective. This is a mission that must be undertaken by the police, the military and volunteers together. Discussions with district secretaries thereafter can focus on the labour requirement, the requirement of technical support and funds. If this process is followed, I believe we will be able to reach our target swiftly. If we think accordingly and work throughout this month, we can return to normal soon. Thereafter, from January onwards, we can limit government departments to their specific mandates. 1,800 houses have been completely damaged in Kandy. People cannot return to them and they should not be allowed to. Are there any available state lands in those areas where these people can be relocated to?
ඒතර ඕගොල්ලන්ට තියනවද මේගොල්ලෝ පදිංචි කළ හැකි? ඒ ආසන්න ප්‍රදේශවල රජයේ ඉඩම් තියනවද?
රජයේ ඉඩම් විදියට විශාල වශයෙන් තියෙන්නේ කුණ්ඩසාලේ විතරයි. අනිත් ඒවා ගොඩාක් LRC ඉඩම් තියෙන්නේ.
අමක් නැහැ ඕගොල්ලෝ අපිට හඳුන්වා දෙන්න. අපි ආයතනත් එක්ක කතා කරලා ඉඩම් ටික නිදහස් කරලා දෙන්න. දීමනාව දෙනකොටත් අපි සැලසුම් කරලා තියෙන්නේ අධියර 3කින්වත් දෙන්න ඕන කියලා. නිවස හැදෙන එක අධීක්ෂණය කරන්න ඕන.
ඊළඟට අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශයේ තීරණය කරලා තියෙනවා සර් 16 වෙනිදා ආපදාවට නොවුණු පළාත්වල පාසල් පටන් ගන්න.
ඔක්කොම නෙවෙයි.
ඔක්කොම නෙවෙයි. කඳවුරු වල ඉන්න දරුවන්ටත් අපි උත්සාහ ගන්නේ පාසලකට කොහොම හරි යොමු කරන්න කියන එක. පාසල් ලිපිද්‍රව්‍ය ටිකයි යුනිෆෝම් එකයි අපිට සපයා ගැනීම හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා.
පුළුවන් තරම්
We must try to reduce the gap in reopening schools. If that does not happen, it will affect examinations. Therefore, examinations must take place on time.
ඉන්දන සැපයුම වෙහෙර වෙලා තියෙනවා මෙතන කියුනේ නෑ ඒකට පාරේ ප්‍රශ්නයක්
ඒකෙන් දැවෙන් දැන් සපයන්න බැරි සෙට් ප්‍රමාණය කොච්චරද?
දැන්ට 5යි තියෙන්නේ.
5කට සපයන්න බෑ.
ඔව් ජනාධිපති. මාර්ගවල අවහිරතාව විතරයි.
මේකයි අපි ගියා නමුත් පාරවල් වල මේ ක්ලියර් කරාට පොඩ්ඩක් ආපහු වැටෙනවා. නමුත් බවුසරයක් ආවොත් අපිට ඒක ක්ලියර් කරලා දීලා බවුසරේ යවන්න පුළුවන්. අවශ්‍යතාවය හැටියට
ඒකට බවුසරේ යවන්න ඕන ඕගොල්ලන් එක්ක
So the deployment of the Bowser must be coordinated with you. If the deployment of the Bowser is coordinated with the right authorities, you can supply fuel. Is that what you are suggesting? Find 2 smaller Bowsers and deploy it in coordination with the police, the military and the Road Development Authority. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation's responsibility is to provide fuel. If the supply chain has weakened, you must inspect the sites and request the work to be conducted expeditiously. Some people don't even know that the RDA has cleaned roads. We cannot work like that in this situation. You must understand that this is a responsibility. Please work carefully. I can see that you have not taken this responsibility seriously, even though you think you have.
During the meeting, the President also directed relevant authorities to promptly conclude protocol initiated to compensate all disaster victims before the end of the year.
Now, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa urges the government to initiate prompt measures to assess and register those affected by Cyclone Detwa to ensure the smooth flow of funds to those affected. He notes that this is a crucial measure to facilitate the commencement of cleanups to get the lives of those affected back on track as soon as possible.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa today visited residents of Karavanala who were heavily impacted by the recent inclement weather.
Visiting these areas revealed that funds allocated for cleaning residences have not been provided yet. No process has been initiated to identify and register those who are entitled for compensation. Against such a backdrop, we are of the view that divisional secretaries must be contacted to ensure funds allocated to finance the cleaning of residences are disbursed accordingly. We expect to intervene in this matter as much as possible.
Now, international humanitarian assistance continues to pour in for those affected in Sri Lanka impacted by Cyclone Detwa. This morning, an aircraft from Switzerland touched down with a consignment of relief supplies, while a vessel carrying a stock of essential goods donated by the Indian state of Tamil Nadu set sail for the port of Colombo today.
A vessel carrying 950 metric tons of food and clothing donated by the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu for Sri Lankans affected by Cyclone Ditwa set sail for the port of Colombo today. The consignment gifted by Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister M.K. Stalin was symbolically handed over to Sri Lanka's Deputy High Commissioner in Chennai, Dr. Ganesanathan Geetheswaran this morning. Valued at approximately 12 million Indian rupees, the consignment contained rice and several other essentials. The Indian aircraft delivering the 9th consignment of humanitarian assistance under India's Sagar Bandhu operation touched down at Katunayak International Airport this afternoon. On board were a 110-foot, 65 metric ton Bailey bridge, a JCB backhoe and a team of 13 engineers from the Indian Army Corps of Engineers. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka extended financial assistance amounting to 19.5 million rupees through the contributions made by the Chinese companies operating in the country. Separately, an aircraft carrying humanitarian assistance from Switzerland for Sri Lanka's disaster-stricken communities arrived at the airport this morning. The shipment comprised 2.6 metric tons of aid, including water purification equipment flown in from Zurich. The Swiss Deputy Ambassador to Sri Lanka, along with officials from the Disaster Management Center, were present at the airport to receive the supplies. Meanwhile, the government of Ireland also announced a financial contribution of €500,000 to support Sri Lankans impacted by the disaster. This decision follows a request made to the Irish cabinet by Dimuth Jayasinghe, a Sri Lankan corporate titan operating in Ireland. The British High Commission in Sri Lanka reports that the United Kingdom has increased its earlier pledge of £675,000 in humanitarian aid to £1 million. The UK's emergency assistance is already being delivered to regions most severely affected by the calamity. In the meantime, Canada also pledged support, announcing an initial contribution of $1 million through organizations such as the International Committee of the Red Cross. The aid package, aimed at assisting disaster-hit Sri Lankan communities, was disclosed to the House of Commons of Canada yesterday by Randeep Sarai, the country's Secretary of State for International Development.
Cyclone Ditwa has devastated communities across Sri Lanka, causing severe flooding and landslide. Canada has always been known as a partner we can count on in moments of hardship.
Our hearts are with those affected by the devastating floods in Sri Lanka, which has declared a state of emergency. Mr. Speaker, in times of crisis, Canadians step up. And to support an urgent and immediate response, Canada is providing an initial $1 million in humanitarian aid to help the Red Cross, the Humanitarian Coalition, and other partners deliver life-saving relief. We're closely following developments across the region and will continue to stand with communities facing the impacts of danger.
In addition, relief supplies gathered by Lankarama Vihara in Singapore, the Willing Hearts Organization and the Mahakaruna Buddhist Association were distributed yesterday to disaster-affected residents in Kegol.
Now, the Manusat Derana Dialogue Relief effort continues distributing food supplies and other essential items to communities affected by the recent adverse weather from across the island. As a part of the program, Manusat Derana reached several easily inaccessible areas including Kotmale, Kandy and Anuradhapura.
The Manusat Derana Dialogue Flood Relief Operation continues to support communities affected by the severe weather. Donors from across the country are joining hands with Manusat Derana, providing essential items that are swiftly dispatched to multiple regions. Meanwhile, the 4x4 Club partnered with Manusat Derana last night to deliver aid to several areas sequestered by the recent inclement weather. Supplies were transported to Kotmale and distributed among families residing in safety centres. Manusat Derana teams also reached Panwila Kandy with urgently needed assistance. Meanwhile, residents in Anuradhapura, Mahavilachya and Katyana also received crucial aid. Today as well, many contributors arrived at the Derana headquarters in Colombo with essential goods and other donations. In addition, Manusat Derana, together with Licence Hospital Ragama, distributed meals to affected families in Pubudugama Kandana.
Now taking a look at your international business news, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said Moscow is ready to provide uninterrupted shipments of fuel to India as Delhi faces pressure from the US to stop buying Russian oil. Putin, speaking alongside Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Delhi, questioned earlier why India should be punished for buying oil when the US itself buys nuclear fuel from Moscow. President Donald Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on most Indian products, arguing that Delhi's continued purchases of Russian oil helped fund the war in Ukraine, an accusation India denies. The two leaders exchanged memoranda of understanding during yesterday's briefing, outlining mutual objectives in areas including trade and agriculture. Prime Minister Modi announced 2 new 30-day visa schemes for Russian tourists visiting India and said that 2 new Indian consulates had been opened in Russia. India and Russia also agreed on an economic program valid until 2030, aimed at increasing current bilateral trade from $60 billion to $100 billion in the coming years. Welcome back. Now in your world news, border clashes have erupted again between Pakistan and Afghanistan Taliban forces, with each side accusing the other of breaking a fragile ceasefire. Reportedly, 4 people were killed and 7 others were injured due to fighting that resumed last night.
Residents fled the Afghan city of Spin Boldak overnight, which lies along the 2,600-kilometer border between the two countries. Reportedly, 4 bodies had been brought to a local hospital in Afghanistan, while 4 other people were wounded. 3 were reportedly wounded in Pakistan. There has been sporadic fighting between the two countries in recent months, while Afghanistan's Taliban government has also accused Pakistan of carrying out airstrikes inside the country. Both sides have confirmed they exchanged fire overnight, but each blamed the other for initiating the 4 hours of fighting. Residents on the Afghan side of the border said the exchange of fire started at around 10:30 p.m. local time yesterday. The latest clashes came less than 2 months after both sides agreed to a ceasefire mediated by Qatar and Turkey. Last week, delegations from both sides met in Saudi Arabia for a 4th round of negotiations on a wider peace settlement but did not reach an agreement. However, international media reported that both sides had agreed to continue with the ceasefire.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night. Stay safe.